1. You will hear a conversation about transport information, about London Heathrow Airport. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 4. Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 4. Hello, how are things going?
Not bad, but...
What's the trouble?
I'm worried about my trip.
Yeah, I remember you will go to Cambridge next week. Is that right?
Yes, but I'm not sure about the choice of transportation when I get off the flight.
Don't you remember that I'm from London?
Oh, right. Could you give me some suggestions?
Of course.
I will arrive at London Heathrow Airport and then go to Cambridge.
How about taking a taxi? It is the quickest and most comfortable way.
Sure, I know, but it's too expensive.
Right.
What do you think of the Underground?
Darling, there is no underground to your destination from London, okay?
Okay.
Why don't you rent a private car?
You mean hire a car at the airport?
Yes.
Is it very expensive?
The cost depends on the type of car.
Maybe it's a good choice. Oh, do I need my driving license?
Of course. Don't you have a license?
I lost my driving license the day before yesterday.
I am so sorry.
And I do not really want to drive myself after a long flight.
Well, how about taking a coach from the airport?
A coach?
Yes.
Do you know how much that costs?
Usually the minimum fare is about £14.
Single or return?
Of course, it is a one-way ticket.
And that's quite cheap.
Yes.
How about the number of passengers in the coach?
Let me see, it is around 20 to 30.
How long would it take to get to Cambridge by coach?
I think it's about 3 hours.
Really? That's too slow. Why does it need such a long time?
Because it has many stops during the route.
Oh, no.
And the last choice is the airport shuttle.
Yes, tell me some more information about it.
Now, look at questions 5 to 10. Now listen carefully and answer questions 5 to 10. I'm not very sure about it. It is better for you to get the information from airport clerks.
Sure. Do you know the telephone number?
Let me check. I think I saved it to my mobile phone. Yes, here it is.
Okay, I'll call it now.
Good morning. This is the transport information at London Heathrow Airport. How can I help you?
Good morning. I'd like to reserve a seat on the airport shuttle.
Okay, I just have to fill out this form for you. What's your name?
My name is Echo Gray.
And your age?
I'm 21 years old.
What is your nationality?
I come from New York.
Okay, American.
Yes.
And your flight number?
It's BA188.
What date will you arrive?
26th of August.
Do you know the arrival time?
You mean at Heathrow Airport?
Yes.
It is 3:05 in the afternoon.
Sure. Which terminal?
It is... let me think.
Is it Terminal 5?
Oh, yes.
So that's the Heathrow Airport to Cambridge on the 26th of August.
Yes.
Single ticket or return?
Just single. Does that have some discount? I mean, some special tickets?
There will be a Super Save ticket after 4 o'clock in the afternoon on the 26th of August.
That's great. So what's the departure time?
16:10.
That will give me plenty of time to collect my baggage.
Sure.
How much is the fare?
A single ticket of SuperSave is £18 and includes coffee.
That sounds good. Oh, how long will it take to get to Cambridge?
Up to 2 hours.
Great.
The last thing, how will you pay your shuttle fare?
Do you accept American Express?
Of course. Please tell me your number.
It is 3339 5183 7799 6047.
OK. Thank you for choosing Heathrow Airport Shuttle. You can get your shuttle ticket from our reception when you arrive at Heathrow.
Thanks for your help.
You are welcome. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
This is the end of section 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turn to section 2. Section 2. You will hear a woman called Annie, who works at the snow centre in New Zealand, welcoming a group of visitors to the centre. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 16. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 16.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Snow Centre. My name's Annie. I hope you enjoyed the bus trip from the airport. We've certainly got plenty of snow today. Well, you've come to New Zealand's premier snow and ski centre, and we've a whole load of activities for you during your week here. Most visitors come here for the cross-country skiing, where you're on fairly flat ground for most of the time, rather than going down steep mountainsides. There are marked trails, but you can also leave these and go off on your own, and that's an experience not to be missed. You can go at your own speed. It's great aerobic exercise if you really push yourself. Or, if you prefer, you can just glide gently along and enjoy the beautiful scenery. This afternoon, you'll be going on a dog sled trip. You may have seen our dogs on TV recently racing in the Winter Sled Festival. If you want, you can have your own team for the afternoon and learn how to drive them, following behind our leader on the trail. Or if you'd prefer, you can just sit back in the sled and enjoy the ride as a passenger. At the weekend, we have the team relay event, and you're all welcome to join in. We have a local school coming along, and a lot of the teachers are taking part too. Participation rather than winning is the main focus, and there's a medal for everyone who takes part. Participants are in teams of 2 to 4, and each team must complete 4 laps of the course. For your final expedition, you'll head off to Mount Frenner wearing a pair of special snowshoes which allow you to walk on top of the snow. This is an area where miners once searched for gold, though there are very few traces of their work left now. When the snow melts in summer, the mountain slopes are carpeted in flowers and plants. It's a long ascent, though not too steep, and walkers generally take a couple of days to get to the summit and return. You'll spend the night in our hut halfway up the mountain. That's included in your package for the stay. It's got cooking facilities, firewood and water for drinking. For washing, we recommend you use melted snow, though, to conserve supplies. We can take your luggage up on our snowmobile for you for just $10 a person. The hut has cooking facilities, so you can make a hot meal in the evening and morning, but you need to take your own food. The weather on Mount Frenna can be very stormy. In that case, stay in the hut. Generally, the storms don't last long. Don't stress about getting back here to the centre in time to catch the airport bus. They'll probably not be running anyway. We do have an emergency locator beacon in the hut, but only use that if it's a real emergency, like if someone's ill or injured.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 17 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 17 to 20.
Now, let me tell you something about the different ski trails you can follow during your stay here. Highland Trail's directly accessible from where we are now. This trail's been designed to give first-timers an experience they'll enjoy regardless of their age or skill, but it's also ideal for experts to practice their technique. Then there's Pine Trail. If you're nervous about skiing, leave this one to the experts. You follow a steep valley looking right down on the river below. Scary! But if you've fully mastered the techniques needed for hills, it's great fun. Stony Trail's a good choice once you've got a general idea of the basics. There are 1 or 2 tricky sections, but nothing too challenging. There's a shelter halfway where you can sit and take a break and enjoy the afternoon sunshine. And finally, Losers Trail. This starts off following a gentle river valley, but the last part is quite exposed, so the snow conditions can be challenging. If it's snowing or windy, check with us before you set out to make sure the trail's open that day. Right, so now if you'd like to follow me, we'll get started.
That is the end of section 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now, turn to section 3. Section 3. You will hear a lecture about student orientation. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 24. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 24.
Welcome to the University of Newcastle. I'm Caitlin. Now let's welcome Mr. Sutton to give us an introduction of orientation schedule.
Thanks, Caitlin. Well, welcome to our university. There are 3 parts of the orientation during the next week. The first part is the campus tour. We will organize an orientation tour around the campus. Now, please look at the schedule. On next Monday, we will begin our tour with an introduction to the Student Union. So, please gather at the door of the Student Union at 9 o'clock. After visiting the building first, we will help all students to apply for the Student Union card. So please take one passport photo when you attend the orientation. Usually there are some departments such as a travel agency, insurance, and so on. You can enjoy your lunch in campus, perhaps at the canteen. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we will all visit the library. A lecturer at the library will give you an introduction. How to apply for a library card, how to borrow reference books, and how to use the facilities in the library. As you know, you will spend lots of time in the library for your future studies, so the introduction is very important for you. On Tuesday, we will visit the computer center. All students can get a username and a passport. You can also register your laptop in the center if you have it. There are some rules of the computer center, especially regarding the use of the printer and the photocopier. After lunch, the next station is the sports center. I am sure you will all be very excited about our facilities. There are also many different societies. You can join in any of them according to your interests and apply for a membership. Now look at questions 25 to 30. Now listen carefully and answer the questions 25 to 30. The second part of orientation is course arrangements. You should gather in the auditorium of the West Campus in the morning of Wednesday. The course coordinator or office staff of your facility will introduce you to the course requirements. First, you will get some information and requirements about compulsory courses, and then optional courses. The faculty often gives students some handouts of course introduction and the different assessments of each subject. Students usually get 1 or 2 days to make a decision of optional courses. Of course, I know nearly all students will focus on the assessment. As usual, we have 4 assessments. Attendance is still the first one. We expect at least 80% attendance and students cannot choose the time. And then all students have to write an assignment such as an essay. Your personal tutor will give you help for the topic choice, structure, data collecting, and time arrangement, so don't be worried. As a student of the business faculty, all students have to do a presentation, especially group presentations, in which you can train and improve the team spirit. The last assessment is the exam. I know you will all hate it, but you have to attend some exams. Most exams are open book. Isn't it a busy day on Wednesday? You will have a free morning on Tuesday. We hope all students can come to department offices to get a curriculum and hand in your optional course form in the afternoon. The last part of orientation is a party for all new students. The party will be held at 5 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday. There is a common room on the 3rd floor in the business faculty building. We will prepare for many delicious foods and drink in there, and it will be a good chance to know your advisors and classmates. Okay, that's the main introduction of orientation. I am sure that you will enjoy it.
Thanks, Mr. Sutton. The next thing.
This is the end of section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turn to section 4. Section 4. You will hear part of a presentation by a history student about the history of coffee. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
In my presentation, I'm going to talk about coffee and its importance both in economic and social terms. We think it was first drunk in the Arab world, but there's hardly any documentary evidence of it before the 1500s, although of course that doesn't mean that people didn't know about it before then. However, there is evidence that coffee was originally gathered from bushes growing wild in Ethiopia, in the northeast of Africa. In the early 16th century, it was being bought by traders, and gradually its use as a drink spread throughout the Middle East. It's also known that in 1522, in the Turkish city of Constantinople, which was the centre of the Ottoman Empire, the court physician approved its use as a medicine. By the mid-1500s, coffee bushes were being cultivated in the Yemen, and for the next 100 years, this region produced most of the coffee drunk in Africa and the Arab world. What's particularly interesting about coffee is its effect on social life. It was rarely drunk at home, but instead, people went to coffee houses to drink it. These people, usually men, would meet to drink coffee and chat about issues of the day. But at the time, this chance to share ideas and opinions was seen as something that was potentially dangerous. And in 1623, the ruler of Constantinople demanded the destruction of all the coffee houses in the city, although after his death, many new ones opened, and coffee consumption continued. In the 17th century, coffee drinking spread to Europe, and here too, coffee shops became places where ordinary people, nearly always men, could meet to exchange ideas. Because of this, some people said that these places performed a similar function to universities. The opportunity they provided for people to meet together outside their own homes, and to discuss the topics of the day, had an enormous impact on social life, and many social movements and political developments had their origins in coffeehouse discussions. In the late 1600s, the Yemeni monopoly on coffee production broke down, and coffee production started to spread around the world, helped by European colonization. Europeans set up coffee plantations in Indonesia and the Caribbean, and production of coffee in the colonies skyrocketed. Different types of coffee were produced in different areas, and it's interesting that the names given to these different types, like Mocha or Java coffee, were often taken from the port they were shipped to Europe from. But if you look at the labour system in the different colonies, there were some significant differences. In Brazil and the various Caribbean colonies, coffee was grown in huge plantations, and the workers there were almost all slaves. But this wasn't the same in all colonies. For example, in Java, which had been colonised by the Dutch, the peasants grew coffee and passed a proportion of this on to the Dutch, so it was used as a means of taxation. But whatever system was used, under the European powers of the 18th century, coffee production was very closely linked to colonisation. Coffee was grown in ever-increasing quantities to satisfy the growing demand from Europe, and it became nearly as important as sugar production, which was grown under very similar conditions. However, coffee prices were not yet low enough for people to drink it regularly at home, so most coffee consumption still took place in public coffee houses, and it still remained something of a luxury item. In Britain, however, a new drink was introduced from China and started to become popular, gradually taking over from coffee, although at first it was so expensive that only the upper classes could afford it. This was tea, and by the late 1700s it was being widely drunk. However, when the USA gained independence from Britain in 1776, they identified this drink with Britain, and coffee remained the preferred drink in the USA, as it still is today. So, by the early 19th century, coffee was already being widely produced and consumed. But during this century, production boomed, and coffee prices started to fall. This was partly because new types of transportation had been developed, which were cheaper and more efficient. So now, working people could afford to buy coffee. It wasn't just a drink for the middle classes. And this was at a time when large parts of Europe were starting to work in industries. And sometimes this meant their work didn't stop when it got dark. They might have to continue throughout the night. So the use of coffee as a stimulant became important. It wasn't just a drink people drank in the morning for breakfast. There were also changes in cultivation.
That is the end of section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers.